All right, you've got your packet there in front of you, and it has the schedule on the front, and then the other 18 or so pages is just all of the different information for the sessions that we'll be going through today. And like I said, I want to begin with kind of a review of our session on AI and ministry. If I can get this thing to come up properly. There we go. And I won't ask for a show of hands how many of you watched the live stream of this several weeks ago, but hopefully you did. So this, I'm not going to take much time. But you may still be wondering, is this really a thing we have to worry about? Are people really going to use this in church? And the answer is an absolute yes, it is. As I was preparing for this, I just for my own fun, I went into ChatGPT and I said, write a sermon on the story of Jonah using the main points: a wind, a whale, a weed, a worm, and a wayward preacher. And that was from my own studies and teaching through. I've taught through the book of Jonah twice, and so this was an outline I had the bullet points for already, but that was all I told it. That was it. That was the prompt I gave it, and it spit out a 4-page manuscript for me. Generated all of this content, and when you read through it, honestly, it's like, that's not too bad. That's not too bad. I could see why people would just hit the easy button and say, you know, ChatGPT, write me a Sunday school lesson. You know, look, we've all been there. We've all been there. We've had the rough week. We had everything went wrong. The dishwasher broke at the same time that the washing machine overflowed, and all of these things happen. And we get to Saturday night, and it's like, oh no, I've got to teach Sunday school tomorrow. You know, for some of you that never happens, you're always on it. But for the rest of us, things like that happen. And it's tempting to just go the easy route. And now with artificial intelligence, it's even easier than ever. I just want to read the conclusion to you. Again, I did not write this. A robot wrote this. But listen to this. God ended the book with a question: should not I spare Nineveh? The story ends there because the answer is not Jonah's, it's ours. Church, Jonah reminds us that God's mercy is bigger than our preferences, His compassion broader than our prejudices, and His patience deeper than our failures. The greatest miracle in Jonah is not the fish. It is a God who keeps loving, keeps pursuing, and keeps calling His people to reflect His heart. May we not be wayward preachers, but willing servants. It even alliterated. Ready to go where God sends and love who God loves. You would be hard-pressed to find something about that was heretical, right? I mean, that's not awful, terrible content. So why wouldn't we do this? Why wouldn't we avail ourselves of this? Well, that's kind of what we're going to talk about here, just to be reminded of. So again, very quickly reviewing this, the facts about AI. First of all, it's intelligent but not omniscient. It knows a lot. It knows more than all of us put together, because it's drawing from the collective foolishness of the entire world. Notice I didn't say wisdom. It is the collective knowledge of man, but it is not true wisdom. So yes, it's very intelligent, but it's not omniscient. In fact, over half, depending on which AI model you use, it could be upwards of 4/5, 80% of the answers that AI generates are wrong in some way. And then there is such a thing as AI hallucination, where you will ask it to prove that what it said was right, and it will literally make up sources to prove that it was right, and give you a link and say, based on this article, you'll click the link and there's nothing there. That's actually happening with AI. So yes, it's intelligent, but it's not omniscient. It is powerful. Yeah, it's crazy the stuff that it can do in just a matter of moments, particularly when you're talking about working with languages and researching and editing and different things like that. AI videos now, they literally have a competition for a completely AI-generated movie. Like the plot, the animation, the voices, everything. And there's one that won last year's contest and is now playing in theaters. Completely AI generated. Totally. There was a human director, you know, like there would be for any regular movie, but other than that, all of the content and all the animation, everything it was AI. So it's very powerful, but it's not unlimited, and you got to know that. You're going to come up against the walls of this as you use it. And then know this, it is biased on purpose. And this is probably one of the biggest dangers when it comes to using AI in ministry. Because generally speaking, AI is built not to offend, if I could put it that way. So what it's going to return in most cases is very bland, non-confrontational, very affirming, very nice type responses and answers and information. And you just need to know that as you're using it. So how can we use it effectively in ministry? I would say you can use it for research, but fact check it well. That's important. Fact check it very, very well. Don't just say, and listen, I'm sharing this with you because these are conversations I've actually had with people talking about a certain issue. Well, ChatGPT said this. Like, I don't care what ChatGPT said. Do your own research. So follow it up. Here's a crazy idea. Hear me out. Hear me out. Actually get a printed book and read it. I know that's crazy in 2026 to suggest such a thing, but look, it's so cheap and easy to put information on the internet. Everybody does it, and that means by necessity, the quality of information is less, okay? It takes more time, energy, money, resources to get something actually in print. So the quality of information on the whole, not entirely, but on average is going to be better. Read an actual book. Do your own study. Learn to find the facts. And of course, this is biblical. When it comes to ministry, we have to study the Word of God for ourselves, all right? Check the Scriptures. Search the Scriptures daily, whether those things are so. Secondly, use it for editing, but don't let it replace your voice. This is huge. It's gotten to the point where people look at things and they know right away, oh, that was AI. Our kids watch a news program called World Watch. I don't know, some families in here might use that. Apparently they had an article this week or a news story this week about AI resumes, that people are using artificial intelligence to do their resume so much now that companies are starting to favor resumes that were obviously written by a human. They're like, oh, okay, this one had a grammar mistake. That must have been a real person, you know. Not necessarily to that level, but it's obvious now to some, oh, that was AI. Oh, this was actually written by a person. And what's happening is that we're letting AI replace our voice. Look, you and I speak the way that we speak, and as we get to know people, they get to know us and how we talk, and they pick up on our idiosyncrasies and different things, and it becomes very personal and very relatable, very relational. But AI is eliminating that. So if you're using it for editing, that's fine. It's great for, you know, proper grammar, checking spelling, but it will also suggest to you many times to reword things. Okay, well, why does it want you not to say that way? Sometimes it's because of tone. Like they say, well, you know, this sounds a little too harsh. Well, maybe you needed to sound harsh in that instance, you know? That's a decision you need to make. Don't let the computer do it for you. Don't let it replace your voice. And I think 2 Corinthians chapter 2 is really a passage that speaks to that when Paul talks about not coming to them with man's wisdom, because he wanted their faith to be in the power of God, not in the wisdom of man. You have a unique perspective. No one else has that. No one else can speak like you speak. So don't give that away. Don't give that up. Communicate what God wants to you to communicate as you teach and preach the gospel to others, and do it with your voice. And then finally, you can use it as a tool, but don't let it become your master. It's easy for technology to take over, and we become digital slaves to our digital masters. I think practically speaking, that means we don't use it for guidance and truth. All right? Data collection, yeah, but do your fact checking. But when it comes to the most important things of life, we have to get our guidance and our truth from God and God's Word. So if we use AI at all, we have to use it wisely, as we would any other tool. Rely on God, not a computer program, to guide us and empower us to do the work of the ministry. And again, I am not opposed to technology. I am, in fact, as I was researching for this presentation, came across some really cool programs now they have for churches, specifically for pastors, that are AI-based to help them in various ways. And one of them in particular had a free trial. I'm like, well, let me find out what I'm talking about and try it out. And it's got some really, really cool features. How many of you have been on social media and you see the little videos that have the closed captioning that, you know, will be a highlight of anything, a reel or highlight? Okay, so you know what I'm talking about. This is, most of those, you don't have someone sitting at a computer for hours editing that and turning it into a video. It's all done by AI now. And so this program did that kind of thing. I'm like, well, let's see how that works. So I did it with a couple of the recent sermons that I preached here. And that was cool, how it worked, and I thought it was pretty helpful. But then with this is the interesting thing, and ties right into the using AI ministry. There was a section of this program where you could actually interact with the AI like you were instant messaging, texting, chatting with them. It was a chat bot. And you could ask it all kinds of questions, like, you know, how clear was my presentation? And it would go through and it would give you suggestions of how you could make it clearer. How was my tone? You know, and it would give you suggestions and all that. I mean, and as I looked at that side of it, I'm like, okay, this could be very, very dangerous. Because again, AI is biased. It does not want to offend anyone. Sometimes the truth offends, you know, like if you're wrong. And so it's very easy to get sucked down that rabbit hole, really, if we're not careful. And I know for some of you this may never be a problem, but for many of us it's something we must be aware of. Because the more, as this advances more and more, and it's advancing at an insane speed, it's going to become more and more common. And I think it also helps, too, to realize when maybe you see stuff put out by these other ministries and, you know, things like that, and you think, wow, that's so polished, that's so amazing, how do they do that? Just understand that just because it's polished and pretty doesn't mean that it's good and right. So let's stick with the simple truth, use technology as we can to advance the truth, but be very careful as we do that. All right? Anybody have any questions or maybe a thought you had about AI ministry, something you saw recently that piqued your interest? Anybody have any thoughts like that while I get a sip of coffee? That's the only reason I ask. I don't really care if you think. I just wanted to get some coffee. You know. No, seriously.
I've seen a definite bias in regards to with my creation science class.
Oh, yeah.
Evolution. And they'll say, well, you may think this, but the consensus is this.
Mm.
The consensus is this. And then I'll be like, well, give me some, you know, actual peer-reviewed articles that prove this. And they'll spit out some things, but it's like, where is it going? And the links it's giving me is really out there. And so, I don't know, that's one area I found that it can be very biased in.
Yeah, exactly. Tell that story about when you were using it last fall.
Yeah, so I actually had it, I was just looking up a Bible verse, and I just really wanted a quick way to do it. And of course, it does it AI side right away. And it gave me some good information, but then I'm like, can you give this to me in KJV? Because I realized it wasn't KJV. And it immediately said, no, we can't do that, basically, because that would, I forget all the reasons why it gave, but it was...
It essentially was saying that would be biased if we did that.
Exactly.
It wouldn't be inclusive.
Yeah.
Kind of a thing.
Right.
Yeah. So real world examples here. I mean, this is not stuff we're just speculating on. So, okay.
Well, there's an enforcement, I guess, backbone that this is all layered on.
Yeah.
And I think you touched on it. The word you could have used that you didn't was politically correct.
Mm-hmm.
Everything is going to be politically correct and based upon whoever programmed this. And, you know, using this, remember the old computer rule, garbage in, garbage out.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to get whatever garbage was put in there is going to what you want to know. No soup for you.
Exactly. Right, yeah. And that's why, we have to rely on the Holy Spirit to guide us into the truth, and not any tool, whether it's a printed book or whether it's ChatGPT or Grok or whatever the most common AI bot comes out to be. We have to depend on the Lord.
So I hear you talking balance.
Mhm.
So you can't say that God expects us to use 100% of our own resources, because we don't. We use the written word, we use commentaries, and we use other inputs, other people, things other people have said, but we don't go beyond that and plagiarize. So what I hear coming through this is a balance, is an intelligent balance.
Right. Which unfortunately Christians are not known for. We tend to extremes. And so I think that's a particularly good reminder for us that, I think there is an extreme on one side of if you use AI, that's the mark of the beast. I've literally read after people who said AI is the mark of the beast. How many of you have ever heard the name Joe Rogan? Okay, Joe Rogan, I don't watch him, don't listen to him, but I see stuff in news articles where his name pops up. And apparently in one interview he did with someone, he asked the question, could AI be the actual return of Christ? Yeah, like Jesus wasn't going to come literally, he was going to come as AI. Yeah, I'm telling you, I know, it's crazy. And you're like, people really think like that? Well, I think is a generous word in that context. But yes. And so you have Christians that will go to the other side and say AI is the mark of the beast. If you use AI, you're not saved. Well, I think that's ridiculous. It's like saying if you use a phone, you're not saved. Maybe, I don't know, some of you were around when phones were invented. Did they say that back then? I don't know. But I think, like any other tool, I think if we use it wisely, it can be good. So, speaking of technology, I want to take the next 17 minutes before our first break and just go over the technology program that we use here at the church for so much of our organization and communication when it comes to programming and scheduling and all that sort of stuff. It's an app called Breeze. Many of you are familiar with it. We use it for everything from scheduling nursery workers to doing our Sunday order of service to recording financial contributions. So it's really kind of an all-encompassing church software. And for those of you who only do the check-in desk, you may not even be aware of all the other stuff that goes on in Breeze. So I just want to kind of go over it so that you understand however you're interacting with Breeze, whether you're doing your blockout dates, whether you're filling out a form for an event that's coming up, I kind of want you to have an idea of what that does for us and why that's so helpful, so that we can continue to use this as good as we can. So when I open up Breeze, this is what I see, and several others who have administrator level access would see pretty much everything here. And I just want to kind of walk you through the process. First of all, the people section is just like you would think. It gives you a panel with all of the people that you can search and filter in different ways. So there are 1,623 people in our database right now. That's a lot of people. These are people that have had some kind of interaction with our church since we started using Breeze. Maybe it was attending an event or homeschool fellowship or giving, of course, church members and stuff. But what this does is it just lets you, search them however you want. Just to give you an example, if I wanted to send out a note to just the members in attenders 16 and above, I have a little saved filter there that I could click on that, and boom, there they are. That's everybody's name and information. If I click on that and I want to send you all a text message, I just click on this text box, and right here is where I would type that text, and it would go out to whoever was selected there. Gives me the option of sending it now or sending it later. That's an important thing to know. Whenever you get an email or text, just know that someone may not have just then been on the computer sending that to you. I do a lot of scheduling these ahead of time just because I don't have to think about it then. So if you're in the choir, for example, you get the choir text at 7 a.m. every Sunday morning. I know you think I'm super diligent and have an alarm set, and at 7 o'clock I'm clicking send. That don't happen, all right? It's scheduled a month in advance, and I just tell the computer to do it, and it does it, all right? So that's mainly used for communication and different things on that side of things. Giving is where that is recorded. Tags is a way that we group people into different categories for different reasons. So let's just, for example, here, click on Miscellaneous Ministries and see what we find there. We've got a lot of old tags from stuff we've done in the past. Here's a good one. There's nursery or nursery workers. Click on nursery workers, and it's going to give the list of people who are in there. So this is how we group people and be able to access and communicate with them very, very quickly. The events tab, this is very helpful for scheduling especially. This is our main go-to for when we're scheduling things. You'll see on this calendar here, nursery workers is a fun one, so we'll just do that. When we click on an event that's created there, it gives us this little panel, and right here is where Miss Charity actually does the input for the volunteer scheduling. So this gives that day who's on the nursery schedule. You can click on this little tab here, and it'll give you a picture of more of a calendar view of everything. Some things that are very helpful here. You notice that little red icon. If we hover over that, it'll tell us that there's a potential conflict. So on this particular day, Lane is scheduled for nursery and for offertory. Now, we can look at that and know whether or not it's an actual conflict, but because they're both just all-day events, the computer is just notifying us of that. When you do a blockout date, it will show up, if you try to schedule someone for that day, it'll show up as not available. I don't know how I could maybe show you one of those. Mama, do you have a blockout date sometime soon?
No, because I just do Wednesday night, so it doesn't show up.
Okay. All right. Yeah, okay, so let me just scroll ahead here. Let's go.
Wednesday nights, it would show up.
Okay.
No, it won't because I'm not.
All right, well, I don't want to.
Wednesday, never mind.
All right.
Sunday that I won't be here.
Okay, so I'll just use Lane's profile for now. Isn't she pretty? So this is an individual profile, and under volunteering, I can actually pull that up, and it'll tell me where she is serving, which some of you may not know this. One of the things I do every single month as we're finalizing schedules is I go through all of the individual profiles, and I click on this right here. So I see who's serving where through the month. So I can see, okay, this person's on the schedule 19 different times. Maybe we need to make some adjustments there. So this is part of what I do on a monthly basis administratively. But also right here under Manage Blockout Dates, you can pull that up. And on our end, it would show up in red if there was a blockout date. So like this one we were gone that week, so it showed up in red for us there. And if we had tried to schedule something on that day, it would show that person's unavailable. So when you get that email, this is where I'm going with this. When you get that blockout date email each month, just take 30 seconds and fill it out. It helps so much to reduce the amount of conflicts. We still have to do so much rescheduling as it is. I was telling the choir, since we started printing the order of service in the bulletin about 6 weeks ago, we have not had a single week where that was accurate. Okay, something was changed. That's literally true. So we already do enough rescheduling and shuffling. This helps minimize it as much as possible. Does that make sense? What's going on there? Okay. Forms is a big one. When we send out an email or a text that's saying this event's coming up, please fill out this form. I know you may think that that's a little bit unnecessary, but it actually helps us a lot. So here's the men's fellowship that's next Saturday. I can click on the view entries right here. It'll show me everybody that's filled this out. And I can look at this and I can say, oh, Jim's coming twice. All right, I guess we need to fill out, bring extra food. So 2 hands, right, half the width though. And so that from here we can download this into an Excel form and do different things with it. Mainly if we need to have a count of who's coming, preparing for food, and different things like that. These little forms are huge. Also for communication, you can email or text everybody who filled out that form and let them know what they need to know. So that's really important. Let me go back to events and let me just touch on checking in. This is something that, of course, every single week we have check-in for the children. So let me go to a future one. Let's go to this Sunday, and we'll go to the 7 and above Sunday school. If you're at the check-in desk, this is the window you would see right here. All right, that look familiar to those who work check-in? So you have this, and generally speaking, it's as easy as just clicking the little box. And I don't have a printer connected, that's why I get that. And that checks them in. Here's where the problem comes in when you don't have somebody on the page in front of you, on the list. How do you get them in there? The way you do it is you click on Add Person, okay? And then as you go to type that person's name in, this is very important. If it's somebody that's already been at the church and their name's in the database, you're going to see this pop up. So if I try to check myself in here, I want to show you what happens. All right, you see right here where it says potential duplicate? Please click on that. Because if you don't, it's going to add me in again, and again, and again. And I have to regularly go back into the database and go through some steps to merge multiple people. I've had as many as 5, the person in there 5 different times. And that happens because this right here. So just click on potential duplicate and add to tag 7. Yeah, that sounds right. And so I would just click add, and it would put me in. It would check me in there. It would print out the little tag. Lane would get the receipt so she could pick me up, and we would be good to go. Okay. So is that making sense there? All right. Again, for child safety, this is very important because this is how we make sure that the right people are getting the right kids, and we don't have any issues. And I'm very thankful that in the now many years since we've implemented this system, we've not had any issues. And let me just say, as kind of a general thing, it's easy to think, well, we don't have a problem with this. Why are we continuing to stress it? What we need to think is, we're continuing to stress this so we don't have a problem with it. All right. I've had parents ask when we explain the child check-in system. They've said, did something happen? And I'm glad I can still say, no, nothing's happened. We do this so something doesn't happen. Okay. So I know that filling out the attendance sheets, putting the stickers on them, and turning them in, it may just seem like, oh, got to do that again. It's important. Every little step of the way is important, just so that we make sure things are being done right, done decently and in order. Okay? From here, by the way, this is also where we can check attendance. I'll go back. If we want to find attendance for Sunday school for the week before. So here was the 15th. I can go down here, and I can click on all my Sunday school classes, and I can see exactly how many were checked in. Oftentimes I have to go back and I have to add the teachers because the teachers don't come to the check-in desk, so those have to be checked in for different things. So it also allows us to do that, and we can do that over time to track things. So a lot of information that's being generated by very simple steps, and that's the idea, to be able to do that. All right, I won't talk about any of the rest of this. Not really relevant right now. I think I've pretty much covered all that is necessary for our purposes. So just the little steps that you do along the way, whether it's filling out the forms, checking things in, all that sort of stuff, it helps a lot on this side.
All right, child abuse prevention policies for Philadelphia Baptist Church. We're committed to providing a safe and secure environment for those participating in ministry activities. Yeah, this is important. For children, youth, and disabled adults, we seek to minimize any vulnerability to unwarranted accusations of improper behavior that the organization, volunteers, and employees may experience as they fulfill their ministerial duties. To fulfill these commitments as fully as possible, the pastor deacons have adopted the following procedures to be used without exception when selecting ministry volunteers or new employees. So here is the volunteer screening process we use. Number one, prior to consideration, all candidates seeking a volunteer position that involves working with children, youth, or disabled adults will complete and return an initial ministry application. The ministry leader or designee will carefully review the application, so pastor does that, ensuring the candidate is an appropriate match for the ministry position. All application material and application forms, background checks, reference checks, notes from interviews, etc. will be stored in a locked file cabinet or other secure location. If the individual appears to be an appropriate candidate for the ministry position, the ministry or designee will check at least 2 references to confirm the information that the candidate provided on ministry application, and the ministry leader will also conduct a criminal background check through a state law enforcement agency or other provider of such service. And we do have a service that we use for that. It works great. It's pretty amazing. Number 4, when indicated by our reference or background check, volunteer candidates who pose a threat to others or have a prior history of physical or sexual abuse directed against another person will be removed immediately from consideration for ministry positions that place them in direct contact with children, youth, or disabled adults. So we do have employee screening procedures. Number 1, the same procedures are required for volunteer workers also apply to potential employees regardless of the ministry position for which they are being considered. In addition to criminal background check performed through state law agency, it is also required for all potential employees. When indicated by our reference background check, employment candidates who pose a threat to others or have prior history of physical or sexual abuse directed against another person will be removed immediately from consideration for the ministry position, placed and not be in direct contact with children, youth, or disabled adults. There's also a waiting period. This is important. We want to make sure we're clear in this. All volunteer candidates must be regularly involved in our organization for 6 months or more before they will be considered for any ministry position involving contact with children, youth, or disabled adults. Any questions? Yes?
Can you speak up a little louder or turn the mic up?
Louder! Is this on?
No, it's not.
How do we turn this on? Turn everything else on.
Project your voice.
I will just project. Yes. I will try to project my voice. All right. Supervision. So we need at least 2 adults, 18 years old or older, to be present at every function or program involving children, youth, or disabled adults. This includes each classroom, vehicle, or other enclosed area, both on the church property and away. 1 or more of these adults must be 21 years of age or older. For large groups, the number of adult supervision should be increased in accordance with suggested student-to-teacher ratios. The adults must have been previously approved through our ministry screening process. An age exception is made for church nursery where 16 to 17-year-olds may serve, provided they have been previously approved through our ministry screening process and they are paired with a screened adult who is 21 years of age or older and not a relative. Workers should arrive at least 10 minutes before scheduled activity, and they must remain at their assigned positions until all people in their care have been picked up by an authorized person. No children or youth should be released to find their parents or wait unattended for transportation. By the way, if you have any questions or anything, just jump up. shouted out.
Other people come to pick up the children,
Mm-hmm.
like sometimes teenagers that are not in the family. Is that okay?
If it's approved by the one who dropped them off. And so just identify
Last year
that.
was discussed, and it was as long as that person has the child's
Sticker.
Sticker, yeah. Of course, for youth activities, that's much different, but children's, obviously, they got to have the sticker, yeah. So, in frontline clubs, when Madison comes, she brings all the stickers. As long as she's got the stickers, we're okay with releasing them. Yes. Mrs. Dill.
So as long as somebody picks them up with a sticker, it's fine if that person stays there and socializes while the kids take off then, right?
From that point on, they're released to that person's care that just gave you the sticker. So, yes, that is fine, but obviously we still need to be careful with that in our area. So, for example, in Frontline, it's like, okay, you're out the door, and now you're released to that area.
You're released
So,
to that parent.
To that parent or person.
And we're no longer responsible because they're released to that parent.
Right. Yeah. Yes, sir.
In previous years, we've seen videos and it's been emphasized to us that when you have these strict regulations in being a children's worker, that a potential perp will look at that and say, I'll go somewhere.
They'll
where
immediately
this is-"
turn around, yeah.
Yeah. So many times, having this type of thing in effect keeps people from
Yeah.
wanting to, well, they're watching their kids. And I
Right.
will say this, we were at a restaurant on Sunday some months ago, and I saw a little girl come in with her mom, and she had a sticker on her back. Well, I played dumb, and I went up to the mom and I said, I'm just curious what the sticker is for, with her name on it. And she said, oh, I forgot to take that off. And I said, well, I'm just curious. And she said, that's so the right mom gets the right child. And she said, my husband is on the police force in Madison. And I said, well, our church does the same thing. So that's the idea.
Yeah.
It might seem like an inconvenience to us sometimes.
And these protections are for us as workers as well. Just that accountability, just that second person is huge for protection in many ways.
Pastor?
Yes, sir.
Sometimes kids sneak out of the nursery, where they're given to parents and they still have the names on their backs. They should be collected once they're...
Take the name tags as they go.
Try to do that because they also go through the washer and it's...
Yeah. You do not want that on the clothing in the washing machine or the dryer. Yes. Discipline and counsel, discipleship and counseling, I should say. Number 1, recognize that discipleship is a vital part of the ministry. Workers will occasionally meet with individuals for spiritual encouragement and exhortation. When possible, these meetings should be attended by 2 screened adults. If only one screened individual is present, it should be conducted in view of another screened worker through a window or open door. As a general rule, meetings for spiritual encouragement and exhortation regarding a particular area in a person's life should be limited to 3 occasions for no more than 30 minutes at a time. If discipleship in this area is required, the pastor must be consulted. If it's anything beyond that, pastor should decide whether counseling by a pastoral staff or professional counselor should be recommended. If the individual is a minor, employees and volunteers must secure prior permission from the parent or guardian before meeting with the individual for specific spiritual encouragement and exhortation or counseling. All right, communication. Number 1, all in-person communication of employees or volunteers with minors under 18 years of age must take place in plain view of others. At no time should an employee or volunteer be alone with unsupervised minor. And number 2, private phone calls between employees and volunteer and minors are not allowed unless permission is given by the parent or guardian per instance. Number 3, the parent or guardian of a minor must be copied on all electronic communications, text, email, instant messaging, etc., with the exception of bulk emails or text messages sent by the church management software. Electronic communication with minors who are 16 or 17 years old may be exempt from this requirement with the express permission of parent or guardian. Ray often wonders why she's getting copied in on things. Yes, I do that a lot, right? And she does it with me, and it's important. It's good. Number 4, this is new. It's underlined. Minors are not permitted to have phones, tablets, or other such devices during church activities. Employees and volunteers must keep devices use to a minimum when supervising minors. That's for us, for me. I need to keep my phone use to a minimum. I'm not browsing the internet while doing a teen activity. Okay, that's important. Headphones, earbuds, bone conductors, all those kind of headphones, etc., are not to be worn by children, teens, or workers at church activities.
What's a bone conductor?
So they're like hearing aid type things, so you can actually get a hearing aid that connects to your phone.
Are they like Google Glasses where you
Yeah,
can hear it?
they just go on your new technology.
So that was written because of you?
And that's why these have to be updated. All right. Worker restrictions, number 1. For children age 6 or older, at least one adult female should take girls to the restroom. One adult male should take boys to the restroom. The adult should check to make sure the facility is safe and then wait outside the restroom for the children. The presence of a second adult escort is also recommended. If possible, call security over and get them to help out with that. Number 2, children age 5 or younger, boys and girls, should be assisted as needed in the restroom by an adult female. Number 3, never touch a person's private areas except when necessary in such a case as changing a diaper. Number 4, workers should avoid the appearance of impropriety, such as sitting older children on their lap, kissing or embracing others, etc., etc., etc. Just avoid all appearance and possibility. Number 5, workers are to release children in their care only to parents, guardians, or persons specifically authorized to pick up children.
So for the number 1, the restroom thing, when you define safe, are we defining it as the restroom is empty of all other adults, specifically adults that would not be authorized to work with children? Would that be what we're calling safe?
It's a good question.
Because, I mean, clearing
Yes.
the restroom before the children enter
Right.
seems to be I mean, obviously you're not kicking people out of the restroom, but
Right.
you're waiting for it to be
Just
clear.
wait a little bit. Someone's in there.
Right.
Let's wait until they leave, and then we'll go in.
And the same thing during the restroom
Right.
we're keeping other adults from entering, or
Right.
people from entering.
Yeah. Just hold on a sec. Kids are in there now. Let's wait until the kids are done.
Yeah, I wonder if that ought to be written
A little more clarity there.
into this. Because safe is
Yeah.
one thing, obviously, we want to clear a restroom and make sure there is nobody.
Right.
But that ought to be,
Just because they're a member or attender, they're not a screened worker.
right.
I would say even just because they're a screened worker doesn't necessarily, obviously we as screened workers are there, but we got to be careful.
They're not part of the group.
Right, if they're not part of what's intended. Yeah.
Does that all hinge on the kid, how long the kid can wait?
Well, there are other restrooms.
Yeah. There's emergency situations, right? Use your discretion. Discipline. Workers are never to spank, hit, grab, shake, or otherwise physically discipline anyone. Physical restraint should only be used in a situation where it is reasonably necessary to prevent an individual from physically harming himself or another individual. So if they get in a fist fight, obviously you got to step in and do something, hold them back, and restrain. There are steps to take care of that. Number 2, disciplinary problems should be reported to the ministry activity coordinator, supervisor, or other parent or guardian. Open defiance, bullying, and acts of aggression are subject to a zero-tolerance policy. We do not allow it. Children who exhibit any of these behaviors will be promptly removed from the classroom or activity, placed with a parent. Repeat offenders will be barred from attending future classes, activities until it is demonstrated that they can behave in a kind and respectful manner. Injuries and illnesses. Persons who are ill with a fever or communicable disease that can be transmitted by cough or touch will not be permitted to participate in any ministry activity. A suitable worker, one who has been previously approved through the ministry screening process, must be used to take the place of the worker who is ill. And let me just say this here. If you know you're scheduled to work something and you get sick, don't just contact me or Mrs. Riffle and say, hey, I'm sick, get someone for me. You take the responsibility a little bit, it's a little bit of extra effort, but say, who can take my spot? I'm going to call so-and-so and see if they can take my spot. Now, obviously, if you can't think of anyone to take your spot, or you don't know who to contact, then go ahead and contact me or Pastor, and we'll try to help you out with that. But don't let the first text be to Saray, okay? Let that be the second or third text that you've already tried other people to fill your spot, and then you do that. She doesn't need that. She's going to say, go ask someone else. Right? Right? You should. Oh, okay. Number 3, participants should return to their parent or guardian as soon as illness is discovered. If immediate return is not possible, then the person who is ill should be isolated in a manner that allows an adult worker to monitor the participant until he or she can return to the parent or guardian. So if they throw up all over the floor, you keep them isolated until the parent or guardian can come and get them and take care of the situation. Number 4, take responsible steps to avoid contact with blood, saliva, and other bodily fluids. Just be careful with that. Number 5, ministry coordinators and supervisors who become aware of an injury or to a worker or participant will take steps to ensure that proper medical attention is given to injured person and provide for a continued monitoring of the remaining activity participants. So I actually have, we've put little forms in each one of these first aid kits. Some of them don't have it yet. I got to get to the rest of the building. I've done it for parts of the building. But we have these little forms that are the incident forms. So if you grab the first aid kit to put a Band-Aid on someone, pull out that incident form, say, just put a Band-Aid on Susie, on her big, little finger. So anything like that happens, go ahead and fill out a form and stick it in the box for Pastor and myself.
Do we have a bodily fluid cleanup kit?
Yes. Gloves, things like that.
A whole kit?
I don't know if we have a fluid kit. We do have dry sorb stuff.
You have bleach,
Bleach.
you can make it 10% hypochlorite, so
Yep.
it's gonna take care of any body fluid.
Yeah. If you go to that maintenance closet, it doesn't take long to put something together. But
Well, I was going to say, just to have a basket of the
Yeah.
items that you need.
it's a good suggestion. I like it.
Gloves, whatever.
Number 6, persons who have received an injury that occurs is obviously minor should be given first aid as needed at the time of the injury. The individual's parent or guardians should be notified of the injury when they pick up the person. Just let them know what happened. Be upfront with the parents. If a parent walks away and their child tells them this happened and they weren't informed of it, that's pretty serious on us. We've got to inform the parents or the guardians that come to pick up the children. Number 7, any injury that may require medical treatment beyond simple first aid should be given immediate attention. Parent or guardian of the injured person should be notified immediately, along with the ministry's workers, coordinator or supervisor. If warranted by the injury, emergency medical personnel should be called. And you can get security's help on that. Have them call while you're dealing with the situation, or you take responsibility and you call while someone else steps in. But take responsibility to do what is necessary to call emergency people and get them involved immediately as fast as possible. Record keeping. All ministry functions including or involving children, youth, or disabled adults should maintain an attendance list for every function. We record the date of the function along with the names of the participant, ministry coordinators, and supervisors. This is done through our Breeze app. I do this for my teen activities as well. Even going to the retirement center, I'll keep a little attendance thing. So whatever we're doing as a church activity, we got a record of who was there, who was supervising, who was doing every part of it. Number 2, ministry workers should prepare a written notice of injury report when an injury occurs during a ministry function. Promptly forward the incident report to the ministry leader. Like I say, we're putting these in the bag itself. They're sized to fit in that bag. So every room should have one available to you right there. If you don't have them available here, they're also in the office. Find them in one of the boxes. Medical incident report. Notice of injury or abuse or molestation. A volunteer or paid ministry worker who becomes aware of any injury, abuse, or molestation occurring within any ministry activity must immediately inform their ministry leader. The ministry leader should then complete a notice of injury form. Ministry leaders who become aware of possible abuse or molestation of a participant must ensure that the participant's parent or guardian is immediately informed that possible abuse or molestation has occurred. The ministry leader also will ensure that an attorney is immediately contacted to provide a written opinion as to whether the organization should report the abuse or molestation to law enforcement authorities. The written opinion should be obtained within 24 hours after the ministry leader first becomes aware of the situation. The attorney's advice should be acted upon immediately, including reporting the incident to authorities. An attorney also should be immediately contacted reporting the incident to the contact immediately if the ministry leader or activity monitor becomes aware of possible abuse or molestation of the participant by a parent or guardian. So that's both whether you think the incident happened here or off. If you see something that warrants a possible situation, let someone know, and let's get authorities involved. Number 3, ministry leaders must be promptly notified. Our ministry's insurance carrier, generally, or professional liability insurance, upon notice of abuse or molestation. So we're going to let our insurance company know right away as well. Violation of policies or procedures. Ministry workers must promptly notify their ministry leader when they or others violate the procedures mandated by this policy. Ministry workers and ministry leaders who become aware of violation of the procedures set by this policy are required to take all necessary steps to ensure future compliance with them. In the process of ensuring compliance with this policy, and may become necessary to remove workers from their positions. All right, internal investigation. Number 1, the ministry considers any allegation of abuse or molestation a serious matter. Each situation will be fully investigated by ministerial leaders, always with the assistance of legal counsel and civil authorities. Number 2, employees who are subject of an investigation will be removed from their positions with pay pending completion of the investigation. Employees who admit to the abuse or molestation will be terminated as consistent with established employment policies of this ministry. Number 3, volunteer subjects of any investigation will be removed from their positions pending completion of the investigation. Number 4, the ministry will permanently remove any employees or volunteers from their ministerial duties with the organization if they are found guilty of abuse or molestation. Whether termination of employment is a factor, we will also consult with legal counsel on that. All right, dealing with law enforcement or news media. We're going to talk more about this in another session, but just these 3 points here. Number 1, all ministry leaders, employees, and volunteers of this ministry will cooperate fully with law enforcement or government agencies investigating allegations of injury, abuse, or molestation. Number 2, the leadership of this ministry will seek legal counsel as soon as possible after we have received notice of possible abuse or molestation with the organization, within the organization. Advice from legal counsel will be the basis for response to the allegations. Number 3, one individual, a staff member or ministry leader or attorney, will be designated spokesperson to handle all inquiries from the news media. Our spokesperson will be the only person to convey information concerning the situation, doing so in a prudent manner to avoid compromising an ongoing investigation to maintain the privacy of individuals involved. So that means don't post anything. Don't message things out. Be careful with what is going out, and we want to be very careful with that and just send it all through one spokesperson. Annual review. Each year we'll conduct a review meeting. At that time, procedures mandated in this policy will be reviewed with all volunteer employee ministry coordinators, supervisors, and leadership of the organization. Number 2, all volunteers working in any capacity with children, youth, or disabled adults will complete a brief renewal application annually. So that's what we're doing right now. Every year we need to do this meeting annually and renew our application so we're staying current as current workers. Number 3, should the renewal application indicate that any volunteer have become unsuitable for working with children, youth, or disabled adults, they will be removed immediately from their current position. They will not be considered for positions involving work with other similar groups. And then the revision of the policies and procedures. As leadership in the ministry, we, with the assistance of legal counsel, we regularly review this policy and procedures established within. If necessary, the policies and procedures will be modified in accordance with the bylaws of the organization. When changes are made, ministry leaders will communicate them with all employees, volunteers affected by the policy changes. Okay?
All right. Good morning, ladies. I'm glad you are here. I'll be perfectly honest. I was hoping for a lot more new faces. But we have at least 2, so yay, I am excited, as all of you should be, because that means hopefully less repetitive serving per month. But thank you, all of you who have served this past year, many of you many times a month. And then the ladies, there's our regulars that are not here, Miss Judy, DJ, Miss Punky, they are dedicated. I mean, you're all dedicated, but, you know, I think most of you are aware Miss Judy is in the nursery every single Wednesday night unless she is sick. And that helps all of us so much because, first of all, it's easy to schedule, but then it gives me some other services that I can use you. And then I understand many of you have preferences, and that's okay. But if you look around, my biggest struggle to really, and I'm getting ahead of my notes here, but my biggest struggle is filling that church hour, the morning service. Almost more than half, I think, of us are in the choir. And we want to be in the choir, and that's great. And so as we get going, I have come up with what hopefully will be a solution for those who want to be in the nursery as well as choir. So I'm going to get there, and I will throw it out, and if there's a big problem, we will discuss that. So looking at your notes, I think all of you, first of all, know the nursery is for the mothers who also work, but hopefully it's a place where they feel very safe in leaving their babies with us. And it's so exciting as our nursery is growing. It's still small. But if the children are happy to come in and you're greeting them properly, it should be a place where the mothers can safely leave their babies and go and fully focus on the purpose of church, which is God's Word. So it is important that we, as we discuss what I have in front of us, that we're consistent and in caring for the babies. So first of all, health and cleanliness. Those of you that have previously worked in the nursery are aware of the changes that we made this past year regarding our shoes. So when you approach the nursery, we have our table where the parents are to sign in. The parents, if they need to be moms, you know, we have 2 of them in here. If you need to step into the nursery, that's perfectly fine. As you step into the nursery, it has the shelving that makes a division. Up until that division, you can wear your shoes. That's a shoe zone. Once you step into the child area, I ask that you please do not wear your shoes. The babies are on the floor. Babies put everything in their mouths. Babies touch the floor and then their hands go in their mouths. So we want to do our part in keeping these babies safe and healthy, and that would be keeping as much dirt away from that area as possible. So you have 2 options. As you're approaching the nursery, on the sign-in cart, there is a basket of socks that I think it's still Mrs. Tilson, she takes our nursery home each week, washes it, and brings it back. So if you see her, say thank you. And then those socks are clean. Every week they're clean. Put a pair of socks on. If you don't want to remove your shoes, it'd be, you know, for whatever reason, and you want to wear a shoe cover, those are also there. They are black. Put them right over your shoes. But please do not wear your shoes into the child section of the nursery. When the parents approach the cart, most of you are familiar with this. It's very simple. There's not a lot of details. Put the date. If you can put a squiggly line, if it hasn't already been done so, after the previous date or service. So even after, not after Sunday school necessarily, but after the morning service, those of you that are working the evening service, make sure that everything's been filled in and there's a new section, so that's easy to glance at as we are seeing who was in the nursery. You're welcome, the parents or the nursery workers can put the date. The pagers, bring a couple out, set them on the cart. The pager number goes, the child's name, the parent's name, and then parents, moms, especially with little Hunter, if you need to leave instructions, that's where they will be written. So therefore, nursery workers should be looking at this. when you take that last baby in, take this in with you. Put it on the changing area. Because it's not been done this past year. It has not been done unless, I think I seriously am the only one. I've seen maybe one or two other ladies mark this. Please mark if you have changed that child's diaper. I understand that you might tell the parents, she had a blowout, we changed them. Great. Please record that. If you feed a bottle to a baby, record that. If they fell asleep, record how long they slept. Please use the chart. So this needs to come in the nursery after you shut the door. So looking at your paper out there, we talked about shoes. So as you step into the nursery, and I'll agree, I'm bad at remembering to do this myself, please put a smock on. Nobody really wants to get their clothes full of baby fur. It does happen. So please put a smock, or there's the black aprons if you want to wear the apron. Please wear that while you're working in the nursery. Those, when you leave the nursery, the smocks or the apron and the socks go in the laundry basket underneath the cabinet. And then mouthed toys. Okay, we started the year out great, and then I think we all just kind of let it go. So after the children, not necessarily they played with a toy. You know, if Chloe's in there and she plays with the house, that does not need to go in the wash bucket. But if they have put anything in their mouth, that needs to be set aside so that it can get cleaned throughout the next week and then be brought back into the nursery. We don't want to be passing the germs because they're sucking on the same toys. Accepting children into the nursery under safety. Again, I'm just going to use Saray. Okay, Saray brings Chloe up to the cart. She has signed her in. There is a box of wipes. We cut them last year. And again, we started out great, and then it just kind of got forgotten. Please wash the baby's hands, even Hunter, as he comes into the nursery. If the moms want to do it, you're welcome to do it, but the baby's hands need to be washed. There's a box of half wipes. So it would be my Sunday school workers, and then again in the evening, and my Wednesday workers wash the baby's hands. We mentioned this earlier in a session, picking up the children. That needs to be, don't let somebody come in because they want to hold Hunter and take Hunter. They have to have that sticker. Then that sticker needs to go on to this chart. We are not supposed to be writing their names. So if they're missing their sticker, please ask them to find it. We can reprint it. They don't like that to be done. But the actual sticker needs to be on this paper. We should be using one of these per service, not Sunday school and then church and the evening service. One per service, completely filled out. If you want to leave it on the cart, that's fine. I am at the nursery throughout Sunday. I can take it into the office and put it in the proper slot. But please make sure one per service gets filled out. Talking about the nursery division. So you have the shoe safe zone, then you have the child zone. It was my goal this past year to get a gate, and I have yet to find a gate that will truly work. Mrs. Bray's been helping me. But the goal is to keep the children in the children's side, not back and forth. And I know that the curtain wraps around and there's a gap. And they love to run around. No, do not let them. First of all, I do not want that curtain coming out of the ceiling and having to be fixed. Second, that's not safe. And then third is it's disobedience. So we're going to train the children to stay where they're supposed to be. If mama comes to pick them up and they come in, that's a totally different story. But during the service, they are to be in the children's side. Workers should maintain awareness of children at all times. I'm so happy that we are really starting to break down, is that the right term, on the phones. I have not noticed any of my nursery workers in there on the phones, but as our teenagers come into play, don't let that be a problem. Phones are not to be out. Your purpose of being in that nursery is those children. That is your 150% focus the entire service. There is the exception of bringing your phone out, and I'm sorry, I never mentioned it to most of you, but Pastor put in a, what is that called? A speaker that has Bluetooth connection. So if you take your phone out and connect to that speaker to turn on church, not anything else, you should be able to listen to church while it works. Many times I'll get through the song service and then for some reason the connection just goes out. So you're more than welcome to get your phone out, connect to that. If you want help connecting your phone, I will be happy to stop in and help you connect your phone so that you can still hear the service and even to just know when they're praying. I know the security guys come by and they say they're praying, but that would help you know when it's time to start cleaning up the nursery. Removing dirty diapers. So as you change the babies, there are the blue changing pads. Do you still keep one in your bag? Sometimes, I don't know if you've ever kept one in your diaper bag, but open up the diaper bag, take that baby's diaper out. If they have one in there, use it. If not, there are plenty of changing pads, one per baby. Don't use the same one for the service. Make sure that if it's soiled, it goes in the trash. Common sense. If the baby has a dirty diaper, you do not have to keep that dirty diaper in the nursery the whole service. Feel free to tie it up and just set it outside of the nursery. At the end of that service, please take all trash, even if it's just wet diapers, tie it up and put it down outside the janitorial office or door. We will get that taken care of to the barrel. Preparedness. Again, I think it was just this past session. Wherever you are serving, please come 10 minutes early. And I know that gets a little questionable when you're coming to the morning service from Sunday school. You might need to leave Sunday school a little early if your teacher is long-winded. My teacher likes to go up until the very last minute. So if you're in the adult Sundays, the young adults, what do we even call our class? If you're in with my class, you might have to step out a few minutes before whoever's teaching is done so that you can get to the nursery to relieve the Sunday school ladies so they can go to church. Arriving, I was so happy that in our last session it's all so clearly listed. So, illnesses and injuries, right through that whole section that David just read through. If you are sick, don't come to church. Okay, the purpose of being sick is your body needs rest. So be sick at home. If you wake up Sunday morning and you are sick and you are scheduled for Sunday school or Sunday service, David said this, but this past 6 months, I have come so many Sundays, and I'm sorry to say, I'll just be perfectly honest, I get really upset because my beautiful sister-in-law comes up and says, so-and-so won't be here. She is not the nursery director. I am the nursery director. She has nothing at all to do with who works those services. So on your list, it says, workers are responsible for securing a sub when needed. If you need a sub, it is your responsibility to either get one or to call or text me. I have a watch that my texts show up right away. So if I'm running around my house on a Sunday morning like a crazy woman because I have children to get ready that don't want to get ready, I will still go, okay, I need to figure out nursery. But please contact me. And that would be only if you wake up sick Sunday morning and you're scheduled that Sunday. If there is any other reason you're not going to be able to make your scheduled service, please try to find your own sub. You should all see the whole month when I send out the schedules. I send it out as a PDF, so if you'll just pull up that, you'll see who's scheduled or who's supposed to be scheduled, because who knows how many changes have already been made. But please contact somebody. Maybe you can switch morning and evening. The week to be after, obviously you can't go back, but please try to attain your own substitute. The blackout dates, very, very important. Obviously there was a glitch this past month because normally I get that red exclamation mark when I'm in Breeze making the schedule. If you get the schedule and maybe you simply forgot to mark your blackout dates, I send the schedule twice, if not 3 times before it's final. So the first time I send out that schedule, if you did not mark your blackout dates, contact me as soon as possible and say, I cannot do those dates. I don't need to know why. Just say, I can't do those dates. Then everybody be aware you're going to see probably 1, if not 2 more schedules come out before hopefully it's set for the next month. I try to do each coming month by the 9th or 10th of the current month. So this month, I still have a couple things to fix because the blackout dates, apparently when the email went out and you ladies filled it out, it did not accept into Breeze. So Pastor has resent out the blackout dates. I'm going to assume you all did the right thing and you clicked on it and you marked your dates. I have yet had time to go back in and make a few changes to the schedule. When, like I just said, when the first one comes out, that's your time to say this isn't working. But when I think you get a text and possibly an email, I think you get both, saying you're on the schedule for this coming Sunday morning, whatever. Please respond to that as well. If it's a no, don't just respond and leave it. If it's a no, I can't make my scheduled service, you're supposed to do what? Find your own sub first. If you've tried to, ladies, and you can't, feel free to call me, text me, email me, and say, I tried, so-and-so is unavailable, and so-and-so is unavailable, so at least I'm not contacting the same people, and I will try to get you replaced. You might notice that when the schedule comes out, you might not see my name on it very often because honestly, the easiest thing for me to do is just put myself in there instead of asking, I know you've been in there the last 3 weeks, can you be there tonight as well? It's just easier for me to fill in. I believe, let's see. Oh, the picking up the babies and the safety. I'm going to hit those again. So like David said, hopefully in our kit, there is the, what did he call it? The incident form. In the nursery, I need any, not any, but if they bump their head hard enough that they're crying, I need that filled out. The parents need full awareness because maybe they bump their head, they fuss for a little bit, they seem okay, but in the next 24 hours, mom notices that they're acting a little off. We need to make sure that it's been documented, not just verbally told they bumped their head. So please fill out that form for almost any reason that a child gets hurt, gets bumped. Thankfully, I don't think we've had any biting incidences in the nursery since I've been here, so that's a good thing. I was a biter, so, you know, hopefully Chloe doesn't start biting babies. I think that is all that I need covered. The one thing I will be working on with David is getting the body fluid kit. Thankfully, I don't think we've had many problems with babies throwing up in there. I mean, more than spit up, but, you know, throwing up. But that would be really good to have. And should we get those, we will probably have just a quick meeting on how to use them because you have to use them the correct way. Did you have a question?
Yes. Back to the toys, the dirty toy basket.
Yes.
Is there a procedure for cleaning the toys?
Yes,
Or
I try to get them washed myself. I take them to the kitchen and sanitize them. I'm not asking any nursery worker to do that, unless somebody wants to volunteer.
Just what about sinking?
There should be a basket up on top of the cabinet that is dirty toys. So, Any other questions?
And we leave it up there, or do we move it where it'll be found, like after Sunday?
I would like it left up there simply because I don't want Chloe going to the toys and pulling them down, and then she's playing, and spreading germs again. I don't want her to have to, that way it's, because that counter by the sink is low enough that they can easily reach up there. Any other questions? I do know that the one family that is not in attendance today, and I'm just not going to say because I'm being recorded, I'm hoping to have a couple more workers. So I hate to put anybody in the schedule more than twice a month, unless you've asked, like Miss Judy is willing to be in there every Wednesday night. If you have a preference on a service that you are willing to work, please let me know. I can't guarantee, because if everybody says I want to work Sunday school, I'm sorry, my Sunday schools are almost always taken care of, as are Wednesday nights. My struggles are Sunday morning service and Sunday evening. Oh, that is my last thing. My thought on how we could spread out my workers, and I need to ask Mrs. Banks, because you are the only one that I can do this for, and you're only in there every other week. So on the weeks that you might get scheduled to be Sunday morning service, and if you are in choir, you may go and ask Mrs. Banks, would you be willing to stay through choir? It is 100% her choice to say no, or yes, I'd be happy to. I am not asking her to always do that. I will not ask her to always do that. But if you get scheduled in your, in the choir, you're going to have to make sure the nursery is taken care of first.
All right. We're going to go ahead and get started with our next session here. And spoke with Brother Stephan some weeks back about doing this session for us on interacting with law enforcement. And this is more just a general information type session. And of course, those I think everybody knows, but he has a very extensive law enforcement background, including teaching at university level. And so we are blessed to have his wealth of knowledge to draw from. And I'm not going to take any more of his time. Brother, if you would come.
Good afternoon, all. I'd like to open in a word of prayer. Father God, we thank you for the opportunity we have being your children. Thank you for your salvation. Thank you for giving us your Son, so undeservedly on our part and undeservedly on his part. But you bridged that gulf that existed between us, and we thank you for it. Thank you for your word. Thank you for the opportunity and the privilege to serve you. Lord, I ask you to help me now to bring some ideas out that will help these folks meet their goals in providing safety for the folks here at Philadelphia Baptist Church. We ask you, Lord, to just continue to bless, provide, protect us and our loved ones, our first responders, our military, those who serve you through our church, and those in government over us. And we just ask you, Lord, if those that are against those things, that you would continue to confuse, confound, expose, and prosecute them. In Jesus' name, amen. All right. Any questions so far? And the pastor just reminded me of when I taught at Bob Jones for 14 semesters, 7 years. And the thing that wore on me most were the freshmen. But it doesn't mean I'm not happy to have young people here. It's great. But I'm reminded of, it just popped into my mind we were talking about a concept called anomie, A-N-O-M-I-E, that was coined by a French sociologist by the name of Emile Durkheim. And this had to do with the condition that a person would come to in their life when they just lost hope over time. And they just got closer and closer and closer to just giving up. And so I asked the class, because I taught for my textbook, and I assigned reading the day before, or the class before, and then hopefully the class would engage with that reading and have some ideas that we could have an open discussion. And by the way, this is an open discussion, so if you have a question, stop me and ask that question. Yes, Joe? Oh, I saw your hand go up. I got excited. I'm sorry. But so I said, who can explain anomie to me? We all read about that in our reading assignment. No? Okay, I called a couple of people. No. Took my book, slammed it shut, and I said, I pour my life into what I bring into this classroom. And you don't even read the assignment. You can't even take a shot at explaining a concept. That's it. I've had it. That's it. I can't. That's it. I took my book and I threw it across the room, hit the bulletin board. Things flew off the bulletin board. People sitting in the front row were going. Everybody had eyeballs, and everybody's eyeballs looking at me. I said, "I'm done. You can find yourself somebody else." Went to the door, and out the door, slammed the door. There were other teachers, because I had been yelling. Other teachers coming out of their classrooms. Is everything okay? Everything okay? Went back into the room and I said, ladies and gentlemen, that is anomie. And they, unfortunately, there were not many times where you could use situations like that to get people's attention, but the reading levels did go up in preparing for class. I want to mention a couple of things. I appreciate Pastor going over this, but I didn't want to be raising my hand every time I had a thought, because we had both engaged very deeply in this subject matter. And it's a two-way street, because I reviewed what Pastor put together, and then Pastor reviewed how I reacted to that, how I engaged in it, and came up with a better product, because it's the combination of brilliance and experience. So starting, I'm just going to go through this and hit some of the ideas in these first sections, and I'm starting, if you want to follow along in the information you have on our prevention and response plans. Just have a couple ideas there, and don't mistake redundance for emphasis. So the things I mentioned are either things that I wanted to add or things that I wanted to really emphasize. Pastor mentioned the laws and how the laws have changed. There was an unfortunate incident in Georgia a few years ago where some people observed what they thought to be a illegal situation and arrested a man who resisted, and that man ended up dead. And those people that made that citizen's arrest ended up in prison. There's a lot behind that. Some of us remember, the circumstances around that, but there are a lot of politics involved, and politics affects the law. And as a result, that law from, I believe it was 1838 that regulated. No, it was in the 1863, because I remember it was in the middle of the Civil War, and I remembered having the thought, why would they change the law in the middle of the Civil War? I don't have an answer for that, by the way, but that's what caused me to remember it. And as a result of them changing that law, they were kind of happy with it. If the law has been around since 1850s and hasn't had a need to be changed, you'd think it's a pretty good law. But evidently they decided they needed to change it. So basically, instead of really researching that, they decided, well, we'll just go 180 degrees and say absolutely no citizens arrests, no matter what. Well, unfortunately, that affects everybody that sits in this room that's on our safety team. because just detaining someone could be construed to be an arrest. But that's only part of what we, even though the laws are in flux, that they're confused and somewhat fluid. I say that because it sounds pretty simple. There's no way you can make a citizen's arrest. Well, guess what? There may be a time when we have to detain somebody, and if you're going to construe that as an arrest and charge me, then your law isn't really making it. It's not doing what it should be doing. So we have to live within that framework where this bad law that we have now replaced maybe a worse law or maybe a law that was just as bad, and we're ended up living through, it affects every one of us who take action. You're in a situation where it's confusing when you do have to take action. So how do we respond to that? And then how do we respond to the fact that and there's another a major change, sea change in firearms law, when we became an open carry state. So now there are many, many, many state laws that mention licensed firearm carriers that doesn't mention open carry. So it's kind of somewhat fluid until some case law comes in and settles down, and they may have to rewrite some things or have it overlap with case law, which basically gives lawyers more work to do. But how does it affect you? These things affect you because all of your actions are going to be weighed against those laws that are in flux, those laws that are fluid, those laws that are imperfect. As you may be subject to review, you may be subject to even prosecution. Because if we manhandle somebody and from their perspective manhandle them and throw them out, and I was involved in a couple of those situations in a church up in Philly where, somebody was had a problem with what the church stood for, the pastor was saying, decided to sound off in church. Well, 2 ushers grabbed them physically, threw them out. We have to use a little bit more subtlety today because everything we do is going to be subject to scrutiny after the fact. So we're left with an approach, two words that are going to overlap or inform our response to every situation. Knowing that those actions may be subject to review, we have to use the utmost caution in what we do, and we have to be reasonable in what we do. Okay, we hear that word a lot. What does reasonable mean? Anybody? Yeah. Well, it's your interpretation of what's reasonable, but what does the court do? Well, the courts that may hear this, they're going to look at the object of reasonableness, which is what the whole law should be based on. What is reasonable? What do most people want? What do most people think is right? It's 51%, literally, quite literally. Even in the years I testified as an expert in court, what was the rule that was used to qualify me as an expert to inform the court about what is the scientific basis of the evidence we're presenting? Had to do with my expertise, my knowledge, skill, ability, and experience has to be more than the average person. It's not a very high level, because that means find an average group of 100 people. If my opinion agrees with 51 of theirs, I'm an expert. It's a low bar. But that's what we're facing. It's uncertain. That just means that we have to be more cautious, more conservative in what we do. It's not the days, as the pastor said, of the Wild West. We don't live in Walton County, we live in Morgan County. And I say that because I had talked to some of these things about, I go to the pistol range in Walton every now and then, and just trade war stories with the old-timers. And talked about some of these things, and they say, well, if somebody's disrupting your service, you just pick them up and throw them out. Okay, well, good luck with that. And by the way, what an off-duty deputy could do and get away with is probably more than what loosely defined the term civilian, what a non-deputy could do. So basically what we want to do, we want to make sure that at least more than the average person would agree with what we're doing. Because that's the rule that you're going to be judged by. When the police department's looking at you, well, did what they do, did their response to the situation, was it reasonable? And that's what the police are going to expect. And that's what the courts are going to expect. Is it reasonable? Is it justified? Did they give this person the benefit of the doubt? Did they do anything stupid, which by definition would be anything less than the average person would do? Well, to hit a couple of the high points, that's just the framework, the mental framework going into this, is that just be aware that because you are going to be looked at, you're going to be judged, not necessarily by a court, but even by the people you worship with. Did you do the right thing? Pastor, I'm trying not to be redundant here, again, because you hit some of these ideas. What's the idea? We talked about before the recommended equipment for a safety team member, emphasizing that firearms are not even requested by the church, not required in order to be a safety team member. But if you are going to carry a gun, we talked about why the extra ammunition is necessary. Talked about pepper spray, the type that would cause the least amount of damage. When you deploy pepper spray in an interior situation, you're going to contaminate wherever that spray touches. So if it's a cone-shaped spray, that may not be as good as indoors because you're going to contaminate a lot of chairs and tables, and that stuff doesn't clean up real easily, so that area could be roped off possibly for a month. So gel and stream are better for indoor for that reason, and they're actually better outside. If you have the particulate dispersal type, it's more susceptible to wind. It's more susceptible to that wind blowing back in your face with the pepper spray now in it. Not good for you. But it does work, especially if you don't know what brands are good. I have a couple of recommendations, but one primarily, Sabre, S-A-B-R-E, red, because it contains the pepper, the condensed red pepper composition plus tear gas. And what that does, when that's deployed, and you can actually watch it on YouTube, they had some excellent videos where these big guys, oh, this is not going to bother me, and they end up spraying them, and they're saying, see, it's not bad. And meanwhile, the guy that sprayed them is counting down 3, 2, 1, and the pepper spray kicks in. Once that pepper spray hits, it just drops them, and they are out of the fight for a good 10 minutes, sucking air and looking for a water hose because that stuff is just so bad. I'm not aware of anybody that's ever been killed by pepper spray, so it's relatively safe, but it's something that you don't. If you do use it in your official capacity here, you don't have the. I don't know. Do we have the church's permission to carry pepper spray, or is that in the same?
We have permission, absolutely.
Okay, so, but it doesn't mean you want to abuse that. That means if somebody's coming here and they're just a little bit obnoxious, and you decide to hose them down with the spray, it may not be reasonable. So you need to be reasonable with the spray as well. Purpose of a flashlight is obvious. Utility knife, you never know if you're going to need it. A lot of these things are better to have and not have than, are better to have and not need than need and not have. What's the idea with the ink pen with the sturdy shift? Some of you old guys will remember the Bic pen commercial back in the 70s and 80s, where they actually loaded one of these Bic pen shafts into a rifle and shot it through a lock lock body, and they are just amazing how strong they are. But what it is, it's an impaling device. And for you who don't know what impalement means, it means stabbing. The idea is that if you get involved in a physical altercation and you have to reasonably use force, you can't go right to a gun. Now, it's true, you never go to a gunfight without a gun. But if you go to a fist fight, you shouldn't go to a fist fight with only a gun, because you're going to over-depend on that, and then you're putting yourself right in a situation where you're going to respond to it. You're going to respond in an improper manner, because it's going to be judged as improper use of force, excessive force. So you don't want to be in a balanced situation either. So you're kind of looking at, if you're looking at an escalation scenario, if this person wants to fight, if they want to fight their way into the church and you're out there at that front door in the parking lot, by the way, the parking lot is the best place for anything to happen. If it's going to happen, we want it to happen in the parking lot, not in here where people are going to be exposed. So if you're trying to stop somebody from coming into this church that's determined to come into this church, you don't want to be duking it out according to Queensberry rules, because, especially me, I'm old. I'm not going to last too long fighting a teenager. I want to fight dirty. Guarantee you, I want to fight dirty. So that's what the pen's for. Pen is just another implement. As much as we don't, as distasteful as it is to think about the deployment of weapons, it's something that you have to use, and we have to be reasonable as we do it. If it's your last item of defense, you got it. It's better to have it and not need it than need it and not have it. Even your portable radio, you can El Kabong them with your radio if you need to, rather than punch them. So we want to stop the threat, mitigate the threat before it causes harm. The best place is in the parking lot. Pastor talked about what DLR is. Everybody, DLR means? Doesn't look right. So if we all know what that means. It's, I have a not probable cause. I'm not hitting the alarm. I'm basically saying that, hey, I got a reasonable suspicion here that something's not right. This doesn't look right. This is a person that doesn't look right. We're not judging. We're just saying, hey, this guy's got a ankle-length, bulky overcoat, raincoat, and it's 80 degrees out there and sun shining. Or they want to come into church with the backpack. Backpacks are for what purpose? You carrying your Bible in your backpack? Is that it? Is it so big? We would just like to see, when you approach somebody outside, we don't want to take, and we're going to get into this with law enforcement, but there are a couple of different type of people that may be drawn to serving on church safety, just like there are people that are drawn to law enforcement work in general, or to corrections. They either have a sincere desire to serve and protect others, or they have a need to control. And, we've seen depictions of the need to control types. Unfortunately, that need to control is something that is needed in law enforcement, something that is needed in safety procurement, but it's how you do it. So we're looking at that idea, again, of reasonableness, of taking that desire to serve and that need to control and bringing that into the middle where you have elements of both working together. So as you approach somebody, we need to just engage them neutrally, nicely, de-escalate. We don't want to cause any aggravation. We don't want to start a fight. We just want to find out what's going on. Hey, how you doing? Welcome to the Philadelphia Baptist. Hot day today. Why are you wearing a raincoat? You cold? It's pretty strange. You mind if we take a look under your raincoat? You hiding anything? Ask them exactly what we want, but there's a nice way to do it. There's no need to jump on them and say, yeah, listen, we need you to get down on your knees, put your hands behind your back, and cross your ankles. Okay. Oh, I just got nothing. Okay, thank you. Come on in. Just talk. Just engage people in conversation. If they're angry, now you're in a situation where, well, we don't have a duty to retreat in Georgia, but there may be some people you want to retreat from. You don't want to be out there trading punches with people. You may want to even run, get back to the church door, and if you can get in, if there's somebody else at the door. That's why I think it's important if you do see something out in the parking lot, if you're at the front door and I get on the radio and say, hey, this is Mark at the front door. I have a DLR out in the parking lot. He's got a ankle-length raincoat on with 3 backpacks, and I'm going to go out and see what's going on. Can I have just one guy to, stay by the door, back me up a little bit? Thank you. And we don't want to gang swarm the person. Just want to be reasonable. There's that word again. Reasonable in our approach. But also to be concerned about ourselves. We want to give them the benefit of the doubt, but we also want to go home at the end of the service. What's in your backpack? Why do you have a backpack? Nobody else came to church today has a backpack. Calm questions. If they don't answer, sorry, we have a policy that you can't get in with a backpack. If you want to open it up, let us see what's in there. That's fine. You're welcome in. So if their intent is nefarious, they're not going to let you. And the battle lines are drawn. But again, it's easier to be nice and to escalate than it is to be hard and then to de-escalate. All right, the critical incident response. Those questions we ask. And by the way, that who, what, when, where, why, and how, Pastor suggested that you can actually practice some of these things and practice when you're out in the stores or the malls. Look at a person and see if you can just mentally describe them as you would to a law enforcement person. Just for practice. It's not as easy as you think. But what are these questions all about? The who, what, when, where, why, and how. They were developed by a school for reporters. They're journalistic. It's a journalistic exercise. This is what a good reporter should even ask. If you're watching a news program or if you're watching something on YouTube about a certain situation, if it's a good report, they should be answering all of these questions. This is what the police are going to want to know when they get here. So we may as well think about these and start categorizing what we're observing. And as you reflect on these, we're into who, what, when, where, why, and how. Because when the police come, this is what they're going to want to know. When a reporter eventually comes to you from the Rutledge Armadillo and asks questions about what happened at church, they're going to follow that format: who, what, when, where, why, and how. So we need to get used to speaking to them in their language. That is their expectation when they come here. That's their job. So we may as well help them to do their job. But now, are we as safety team members going to do that? No, that's not our job. It's pastor's job to talk to the press, to give out official information. So our job is really easy. All we have to do is... Because what happens if we start telling them, if our intent is to be quoted in the Armadillo, we're not doing what we're supposed to be doing to properly represent Philadelphia Baptist Church and its members. What we should be doing is directing people to where they need to be. Directing congregants to where they need to be safe. Interrupting those with nefarious intent. And helping law enforcement achieve their goals and helping journalists to achieve their goals. That way you're doing your job. Our job is not to do everybody else's job. You only do your job. And that's what's contained in here. So you have to familiarize yourself with what's in here. And I also recommend that you would maybe pull this out. Don't put it away. Leave it out somewhere where you're going to see it. And read it again. And then maybe go to your Google Calendar once a month and put a notation in there, review safety team policy. Because what you're going to do then is ingrain it. The more you ingrain this into your psyche, the easier it's going to be when it comes out. You're going to be thinking, you won't have to think about these things. They're going to be there. They're going to be part of your autonomic nervous system and your response to a situation. You're not going to think, you're going to do. This is the whole reason that the military uses boot camp. This is our version. The best way for us to treat you to be a good safety team member would be to put you through a boot camp experience where we erase every bit of prior learning, right? Create a significant psychological event in your life and your mind, tear you down to nothing, and then begin adding information slowly about what you're supposed to do, and basically recreating you, restacking you as a person so that you react when they tell you, go that way and kill the people that are up there. You're going to say, yes, sir, and you're going to go do it. But that's how the military does it. We do it kind of differently. So what we're doing is the way you get this, internalize this, is you're going to review it as many times as is necessary for you to know what you have to do when the time comes. Question? Yes. Does he have a question? Thank you. A comment. That's even better. All right, so anybody wanting information, you're directed to the pastoral staff. First responders. By that time, hopefully, we'll set up if there's a critical incident, it'll set up probably in the office, I guess, because that's the most logical place. Yeah, if it's something that's simple, yeah, there's an incident, the incident command center is over there, your people are there, and whatever's happening.
So, Stephen?
Yes, sir.
I do want to just clarify that when it comes to dealing with law enforcement in their investigations, when they're seeking information, our safety team members are free to interact with law enforcement and tell them what they know and what they remember.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
So the referral to the pastoral staff is specifically for journalists, news agencies, random sleuths on the internet who want to find out what's going on. That's the kind of the information that's getting publicized. We want to be careful that we're being consistent and clear with that. That's why we would restrict that.
Thank you for that clarification. Yeah, the who, what, when, where, why, and how. Whatever portions of that you know, to law enforcement officer, first responder coming to the scene. Yeah. Could be a firefighter coming to the scene. Where's the fire? You have to go see the pastor and he'll tell you that. No, you tell him where the fire is. But yeah. So yeah, thank you. Thank you for that clarification. And that backup, the situation where we had one in the parking lot a few months ago where Stephen did a great job. Talked to the guy out in the parking lot and found out what the deal was and all that. But if you had any doubts, you had picked up the radio, obviously, and said, can you send one more person out here? And we don't want to swarm them because Pastor had mentioned distraction. I can tell you a lot of stories of how criminals use distraction, but basically, if they can lure all of our responders, all of our safety team to a certain point, dealing with the distraction, it leaves them free to do whatever they want to do in other locations. So it's important for the lead safety team member to realize this and to send people back. It's the same thing like, somebody has a medical event in church. There's a crowd of 25 people around them. Well, do you need 25 people to handle that person? I mean, it becomes a privacy issue, but you're also, you're cluttering the way for responders to come in. Just go somewhere else and find something else to do. because there's going to be plenty to do in one of these response situations. But yeah, if it's necessary, ask for a backup. There's another thing to remember about somebody that's causing a disruption in the service. They probably know more about what you're allowed to do than you do. They know the fine nuances. Now, they may get surprised when they get thrown out, but then it's if they have to be thrown out, if they're disrupting, and they continue in that course of disruption to the point where they're creating a safety incident or a potential safety problem, then out the door they go. We're going to arrest them. Is there any reason to detain them? Well, again, remember what we said. I mean, I talked to a lieutenant over at the Morgan County Sheriff's Office, and he was very, very, very hesitant to say when we could hold somebody. As a matter of fact, he said, well, just call us. Well, yeah, wait a minute. So you're going to be here in 15 seconds, 30 seconds? I doubt it. It's probably going to take 15 minutes, half hour. If somebody gets here in under a half hour, it's going to be an accident. Unintentional, that they were just that close. Just not that many. And think about the coverage that they have. They're going to have more coverage in the county, enough deputies on patrol to where they're going to have their highs in activity, which is going to be Friday, Saturday night, most of the time at night, into a couple hours into the morning. Sunday mornings? Yeah. So there may be situations where we have to do that. If you think about how you're responding, is it reasonable? Is it justified? I'm just holding them because if I don't hold them, somebody's going to get hurt real bad or somebody's going to die. That becomes the predicate for our decision. And those people coming in here, they're going to know exactly what you can do, what you can't do. So except in the case of self-defense or protection of others, other exigent circumstances, you can fill in the blanks there, but just again, make sure that you're being reasonable. Somebody threatens with a weapon, you use reasonable force. If they're holding a knife and they're 50 feet away from you, doesn't mean open fire. There's the 21-foot rule. Well, do you really defend that in court? I don't know. The best determinant that I always tell people, I told my wife this, if you can reasonably articulate to anybody that the reason I took this action was because if I didn't, I was going to die. If I didn't, she was going to die, or he was going to die. If you can reasonably articulate that, and it makes sense to a person that hears it, there's no way you're going to be. You may be saying that from a witness chair. Doesn't mean you won't be arrested, but it means that you will eventually. You're going to. I'd be surprised if you got that far if what you do is really reasonable. But that's the level of certainty where you need to be. If I didn't do that, I was going to be dead. Who's going to argue with that? And then there's an old saying that's better to be judged by 12 than carried by 6. So if I'm alive, that's the proof I did the right thing. I'm okay with it. Be careful. Missing children, the thing I wanted to add to that is most of the time, whether it's in institutions, in homes, most of the time children are found in the location they're reported missing from. They're hiding. And we found that to be true, I think, in a couple of our situations here, right? So that means that we have to do a thorough, systematic search, and then do it again. And don't ever be afraid to activate 911. And remember, it's 911, it's not 911. Philadelphia actually got sued for that by somebody because they were told to dial 911. And they went to the dial phone and looked, they dialed 9 and then they couldn't find the 11.
Oh, no.
But so remember, it's 911. It's a true story. Okay, let's see. I'm trying to weed through the things you mentioned earlier, Pastor. What time we finished?
About 5 minutes.
Okay, perfect. Okay, first responders, what they expect and how you can work with them. Number one rule is you don't want to greet a first responder with a gun in your hand, because they could misinterpret that. They want to go home at the end of the day. If there is a situation where you use a firearm, secure it after you do on your person or somewhere where it's secure. Church safe, I don't know. But I would just reholster it and wait for first responders. First responders, a lot of this is behavioral. They may be sensitive or oversensitive to titles and rank and their name. So in the sheriff's office here, you have deputies, and you may see single stripes. A single stripe would be a deputy or just a lower rank. But you don't want to call them private. Like, if that military insignia for a single stripe is a private first class, they're not. They're deputies. And if you see 2 stripes, chances are they're a master deputy. 3 stripes is a sergeant. Single bar is a lieutenant. A gold oak leaf would probably be a major in their rank structure. But if you start seeing that, just go with, if you have any doubt, use sir. If you see an eagle, it's not a chief, it's a chief deputy. And of course, as the sheriff, you'll see more stars than you could probably count. And you could always go up. Mistake by going up. Don't call him an admiral. We talked about the 2 types of people drawn to law enforcement. Remember that there's a difference between policy and law, just like the lieutenant that was stuck answering my questions about how we could reasonably use force in scenarios. He wasn't really willing to answer me. He sent me their policy, which is boilerplate from the agency that did their accreditation, which means it's a lot of legalese, it's a lot of ambiguities, and it's not really helpful. The law itself, we said at the beginning of this, is just mixed up and you're just waiting for the courts to straighten it out. First responders, they're generally disinterested in a number of things. They're not interested in hearing your experience with law enforcement in the past. They're not interested in hearing about the fact that you may have been in Vietnam or Afghanistan and what you did to the Taliban and everything else. It goes beyond what they're looking to do today. And really, you're only going to distract them from their purpose and dilute their focus. Be friendly, but avoid idle conversation with them. Oh, is that a 40 Smith & Wesson? How long have you guys been carrying those? It doesn't matter. It goes beyond the scope of what we're looking to do. What we're looking to do is based on the reason they're there. Do your job. Don't seek attention. Be helpful. Be responsive. What do you do if you attract attention? I mean, if you're doing a professional job, you may attract somebody coming to you to get information. Again, politely defer to pastor, unless it's something that needs to be answered on the spot, like where's the fire? Where's the guy with the gun hiding? And with that, any questions? Either means I've been very thorough or I've bored you to death and you can't wait to get out of here.
I have this is a very general question, but I think it would be helpful. Like, obviously, if we had an incident here and the police arrive, they're going to begin to take charge of the situation. So, can you kind of give us...
They'll let you know that, too.
Right, exactly. So, what level of authority, I guess would be the right way to say it, should we expect them to be taking when they arrive
and how should we be responding?
The first deputy that gets here is going to be in charge of everybody here, if it's a safety situation. So we defer to the first deputy here, even if it's the sheriff's wife's third cousin and that's the only reason he's a deputy.
And so, we have our policies in place, but I could imagine a situation where they come in and start telling us to do different stuff.
Your policy is trumped by their policy. Their policy, is trumped by the law, and the law is trumped by the courts and their determination of what's right in that law.
But basically, we need to be prepared to, when they show up, to do what they say.
Cooperate.
Yeah.
They're the ones with the badge.
Yeah.
The lowest deputy outranks our most experienced, most astute, most intellectual, most whatever we have.
And what you mentioned too about firearms in particular, if it's an active shooter type situation, one of the reasons we ask our carriers or those who carry to wear the little pin, it's not much, but at least it's something that helps us identify one another and even potentially say to an officer responding, we do have guys carrying that are engaging the shooter right now, just know that kind of a situation. But basically, as soon as law enforcement comes in the field of view, field of play, our people need to be aware of that to stand down as quick as possible if needed. Is that accurate?
If you are in a situation where you are, let's say you have had the opportunity, thankfully, to contain a person who has or has used a firearm, and they're not moving, you're not moving, so you're in a barricaded situation. You may not be able to disengage. You may be covering them. Remember we talked about that idea of marching fire, where you have them pinned down, and they have to make a decision, but you have to respond to what they're telling you. If they're telling you to back off, we got it. Yes, sir. Have fun. But, if you need us, you need help, let me know. And if they're smart, and there's no guarantee that the person that responds is going to be the sharpest pencil in the drawer. You have to do what they say, whether it's right or wrong.
Or accept the consequences.
Or accept the consequences, right.
I mean, the law enforcement's always, their first response is always going to be to de-escalate any situation, right? So
Their first response is going to be to do whatever they have to do to make sheriff's office look good.
Which would be the least loss of life, right? You would hope.
You would hope. They don't want to make any mistakes. They want to follow their policy. Now, right now, as far as I'm concerned, they have a boilerplate policy that they probably can't even apply. So they're going to try to do things based on, in terms of, when things get confused, try to do the least amount possible, the best way you can. So be reasonable. So they're going to be following the same rules we are. And hopefully, we'll be in that front office talking about things and taking reasonable actions based on known information.
Right. And giving descriptions of suspect versus our own personnel.
Right. No matter what happens, it's never going to be perfect. It's never going to be completely right. It's going to be messy because there's people involved. We do the best we can with what we have. Anybody else? Well, thank you for the opportunity, Pastor.
But I'm going to be starting on page 4 of the prevention and response plans. So let's start at the top of the page. A threat to do bodily harm is always taken seriously, not acceptable. If you threaten to hurt somebody, you're gone. Leave. That's the answer right there. You are not welcome here. If they have comply, then let them comply. Again, we don't detain them because they made a threat. We want them gone. Follow them to their vehicle, take a picture of their license plate, and we'll notify the police and go from there. If they do not comply, then and they continue to remain a threat, then we use whatever force is reasonable and necessary to stop the threat. That's anything from pinning them to the ground and giving them a noogie until they cry to whatever. Do you know what a noogie is? That's where some of the kids are like, "What's a noogie?" To using lethal force if necessary. Reminder to our safety team members about alerts from the children's room. Let's be very quick to respond to those, because usually they don't get on the radio and say they need help unless they need help, because usually that kid is not going to tell you they need to go to the bathroom until they really need to go to the bathroom. Okay? All right? We'll come back to the missing child as the last thing we do. Fire. Where do we go if there's a fire? Outside. All right? Every room on the sides, every classroom has an exit immediately outside. That's where you go. Sunday school teachers, children's church, nursery, front line. If there's a fire, that's where you go. Very easy. You remain there until the all clear has been given, and which time we'll reunite them with their parents most likely. Make sure, this is something we have to highlight, that you don't congregate in the front if there's a fire. Go to the sides. Go to the sides. We want to keep the front clear for fire trucks and all of their pretty lights. Okay, so go outside. If there's a tornado or severe weather, where do we go? Outside. No, not outside. Not outside. Opposite direction, we go in the large restrooms on either hallway. And this is the one time where boys, girls doesn't matter. Okay? We are under a tornado warning. There's been one spotted. We've gotten the alerts on our phones and whatever. We all go into those until the all clear is given there. All right, medical emergency. This is the one that we have most often needed in the last, really ever. So what do? Well, we are blessed to have several medical professionals in our congregation, and usually one of those are nearby, and they kind of take charge of the scene, which is good. Anybody else who is not actively involved in helping in that situation needs to leave, all right? We don't need 9 people sitting around confusing the situation. So everybody can just help with that once you know you're not needed. And basically, if somebody with more training than you shows up and you're not helping that person with more training, then go ahead and remove yourself from that situation. It may be a good idea to help set up kind of a perimeter and keep other people back and just give people space. But help us with that. That'd be great. We do have an AED, automatic electric defibrillator, on the front wall by the main entrance if that's ever needed. There's wheelchairs and walkers in the front office as well. First aid supplies are located in the front office. We go over this every year. Where are first aid supplies? Where? Thank you. I get asked the question by the same people that sometimes that have been in 10 different worker trainings. Where's the first aid? It's in the front office, all right? So when you go in, there's the first cabinet right there, open it up. There's a big orange and black bag, and it's got gauze and tape and wrap, and really that's the only bag we use anymore. These little kits we have in each room, they've got the basics like, Band-Aid and some stuff like that. But most of the time, if we have an injury, even if it's just a scrape, we grab that big bag out of there. There's other things in that bag for more of a mass casualty type event. Just know that that's there if we ever need it. Very quickly, what do we do in an armed assailant or active shooter situation? Safety team members, there's a two-pronged approach here. Number one, we want to make sure that the congregants are safe. That means if children are in a separate place, we have adequate people there to protect them. There's always at least one person nearby. We need to send probably another safety team member to help them. The others are securing the congregants, making sure we've got people covered there. Once we have taken care of that first prong, if we have the personnel to engage whoever the armed assailant is, we want to do that. We want to proceed then to the threat to stop it before it gets any closer. But what we don't want to do is send everybody out one door of the auditorium while the shooter comes in another door, okay? So it's never going to be a textbook situation. It's always going to be a fluid situation, but that's the general gist of that. All right, I know I went through that quickly. Any questions about that? Brother Stephan?
The AED, I happen to wonder why it was an AED plus, and it's because it's adequate for children, and I believe infants.
Yes, it is.
Yeah. Is this the one that also is the same as the fire department, or did we not?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, and ours is actually the same kind carried by the EMTs in this area, so that if you have put leads on somebody, they can leave those leads there and just plug it into their machine and go. So, very good. Any questions about that? All right. So let's go over missing child. What is our procedure? Well, if at any point a child is reported missing, then when it needs to be notified on the radio and publicly announced so that a search can begin. So this might look differently, but as soon as possible, when you realize the kid's just not, it's not that I lost sight of them for a second. I actually cannot find them. And I say child, it could be another situation, older teenager, even maybe a disabled adult. But if you realize they're missing, notify as soon as possible. One safety team member should close the gates. I think we've modified this so that if we have 2 available, we'll send 2 out to do that. We have safety team members posted at opposite corners. Safety team members, let's clarify this. We need 2 safety team members outside at the corners of the building. And they're on opposite corners so that you have line of sight on all 4 sides. Does that make sense? Yeah. In this particular situation, let's say one person's up here and the other person would be in that opposite corner. So a minimum of 3 safety team members outside then, 1 on the gates, a minimum of 1 on the gates, and 2 covering the corners of the building for line of sight so we can see who's coming and going while we're searching. Okay? So they're doing that. We use the intercom to broadcast the notification that a child is missing. And by the way, we do this in this order. We want to get eyes on the exterior first. We don't want to take any more time away from that by getting on the radio. Once we've got eyes on the outside, then we get on the intercom and we broadcast that a child is missing. And we give a description of the child as much as we can. Age, ethnicity, hair color, what they're wearing, height, all those kinds of things, as much information. Because it could be a situation where it's a visitor and it's not a child that we know well. So we just make that a policy. And with any child abduction, time is critical. 10 minutes is our window. Once a child has been reported missing, we start a timer. And if they're not found within the 10 minutes, we call the police. Now, we don't call the police right away because most of the time they're hiding. As we heard just a minute ago, it's a situation where either they were playing hide and seek and nobody else knew about it, or for whatever reason they're hiding somewhere, and ideally we'll find them and it'll be a non-issue. But we only give ourselves 10 minutes to do that. And then we must notify the police. That is the policy. And we keep searching until either authorities say you can stop or the child is found. Okay? Does that make sense? Yeah. Clear? Questions? What do you do when you find the child? Scold them soundly. No, you take them to the front office where they will be reunited with their loved one, who will then scold them soundly. All right, so front office is where they go. All right?